I've become increasingly interested in common law and natural law. Now, I'm no expert. I've only sort of started paying attention to these subjects in the last few years. Now, I read and I talk to people more knowledgeable than I. But common law boils down to don't steal. And you can so you don't steal someone's stuff. Don't steal someone's wife or husband. Don't attempt to take away, steal their rights, their freedoms. Don't steal. That's pretty much, it's natural law. And really, if you're not doing that, if you're not stealing, and you're not causing a fray, causing disturbance deliberately, or hurting anyone, or damaging property, you are free to go about your business. That's an ancient understanding of the inviolability, the untouchability of the individual who's not stealing. You've got to be left alone. And you're not really supposed to be taxed, surveilled, poked and prodded, psyops, nudge units, mandated. None of that. All of that is in breach of common law, and certainly in breach of natural law. And the establishments know it. They are operating unlawfully all the time in every realm now. They are knowingly behaving in a way that breaches the natural order of things. And, to get back to that question, and now the police are being used as a tool, the myrmidons of the state, being used for political ends. It's a tragedy, and I don't use that word mistakenly. I think one of the fundamental problems is that the people who have obtained power do not care about people. Worse than that, they regard the mass of the population with unbridled contempt. And that feeds into everything that we experience as a population now. They don't like us. And they certainly don't care about us. And the things that are being put in place by legislation are to our detriment, not by accident, but by design. Because it's being imposed upon people by people who don't like them. That's one of the basic awakenings that I think are necessary in order to come to terms with the nature of the world at the moment. There's no empathy. There's been some sort of distillation at the top, and any regard for the individual, any empathy with the circumstances of others, especially those who pose you no threat and are less well off and less everything. There's a contempt now, a distrust of, and a dislike of the populace, and the people at the top are only operating to increase their authority, control, and wealth. And anyone still labouring under the misapprehension that any of the institutions of state are benevolent or in any way committed to looking after you or making your life better or just leaving you alone, that's a misapprehension. And the way in which the corrupting of the police service is it's a notable example of that, but it's not alone. They don't like you. They actively don't like you, and they don't trust you, and they want to keep an eye on you 24 hours a day because they think you might go out and improve your circumstances. They can't be having that.
It's interesting, the whole surveillance issues. I remember when they started to ramp up in Britain, it was quite a few years ago, and initially people who were kind of for them in one way, they would say, well, I don't do anything wrong, so it doesn't make any difference if they film me not doing anything wrong.
Does any look at the state of look at the level of surveillance that's there now? You know, a density of CCTV, and I ask the question: does anyone feel safer than they did 20 years ago, or whatever? Everyone feels less safe. So all of that stuff was put in place allegedly to protect us, and nobody feels safer now. Here's the thing: government is we pay for it, right? There's no government money, not a cent. It's the money that people create from the sweat of their labour, right? That's the only wealth that ever exists. So any money that the government is spending is your money, or money that they're waiting for you to earn so they can take that. And because of that, because we pay for them and pay them, they are our servants, or they don't exist at all, right? Otherwise they're just squatting in your life. And because of that, it's been turned on its head. We should know everything about government, and they should know nothing about us. We are private individuals, they are public servants. We are profit, they are debit. And because of that, they have persuaded people that they ought to be in our business and in our faces. That is back to front and upside down. They should know nothing about us, not a thing. And we should know everything about them. And yet they're out there, you know, creating circumstance. You know, they're secretive all the time about what they're doing. A lot of people are very energised and agitated about the World Health Organization, the amendments to the international health regulations, that many people, myself included, see as a blatant theft of national sovereignty and people's rights. And there are organisations out there who have had the temerity to ask, to put in freedom of information requests, asking to know who from here, who from the UK is taking part in these negotiations, who is going to Geneva or whatever and taking part in these negotiations. And the government is saying, we're not telling you that. They won't even say what public servant that we pay for is out there taking part in conversations that the consequences of which could alter our circumstances to an unrecognisable and irredeemable place. And the government says, you're not entitled to know that. And that is an inversion of everything about the way things ought to be.
I'm sure it's the same in countries all over the world, but if you're reading the messages from government and the stuff they put out, they're always talking about an openness, how they're open and they want it to be open, and yet they do seem extremely secretive about everything, don't they?
Well, in the same way that the mafia, you know, Omerta, the Code of Silence and all of the rest of it, that's because the governments of the West are crime syndicates now. They're crime families in league with big corporate, big business and the banks. You know, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum calls it stakeholder capitalism, but it's fascism. And these are criminal outfits that we're dealing with, who are operating criminally against the best interests of the vast majority of the population. Once you accept that, now you know where you stand.